Welcome back to Whiteout Weekly, and it has been a minute since we last put out an episode, so apologies for that. But we did make up for it with a very special guest today. He's the second guest ever to grace the podcast, with the first being Penn State superfan and our very good friend, Reed Kellum, who joined some elite company in terms of guests on the podcast.
Very special guest indeed. Joining us today, founder of L.I.G Sports, which includes a variety of different platforms and services such as Blue Chips Academy podcast, the creation of some great brands, as we've seen this year, a good bit, Lockdown U, which is, leading to, an elite secondary. This gentleman worked in the scouting department for the Cleveland Browns after a successful 6-year NFL career in which he was the 4th round draft pick, 101st overall by the St. Louis Rams at that time. And then later in his off the field career, worked with Penn State in the recruiting department as a recruiting coordinator, which helped lead Penn State to the highest ranked recruiting class in school history in 2018, where they landed an average commitment grade of a 92, which include the likes of Micah Parsons, who we all know and love, and some of us hate now that he's on the Cowboys, PJ Mustipher, and a number of others. He worked in the XFL along the likes of Commissioner Oliver Luck and Doug Whaley, a manager of football operations role. But again, most importantly, taking us back to 2005, that electric Orange Bowl year, where he was the 2005 Freshman All-American in one of those prominent two-way player roles, the number 5 overall highest rated recruit in Penn State history, according to 24/7 Sports. That man is none other than Justin King.
A man of many, many, many talents. And we had a very insightful and just all around great conversation with Justin, talking about everything from his Penn State playing days to his current ventures at L.I.G Sports Group, and talked about the highly anticipated big noon kickoff at the Big House against Michigan. Enjoy.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, fellas.
Yeah, man. Great to have you on. Thanks for taking the time out to talk to us. We really appreciate it.
Anytime, man. Anytime.
So I got to ask.
Agenda.
Yeah, to start off, I got to ask, namesake of our podcast, obviously, Whiteout Weekly. The first one, I think, was 2004, 2005.
It was 5.
Yeah, probably just like the student section, spreading it over Facebook or something like that. Yeah,
No, I was actually on the team when that first one happened, and I remember it to this day. And I remember Guido. Shout out to Guido. He was the marketing guy at the football department, and he had this idea for just the student section that we're all white, and we were playing. I don't know if it was it Ohio State or Minnesota.
It was Ohio State. You guys upset them.
It was Ohio State. Okay, yeah. So I remember how electrifying that was when we stepped on the field. Like, it was already, I got goosebumps the first 4 games when we played Cincinnati, all those different type of things. But I remember that whiteout being really different, that first one. And it was strong because, as a defense, you're like right in the student section. So It was just like right there. And the following year, we followed up with the Notre Dame situation. Was that Notre Dame the next year?
Yes, it was. It was 2007 Notre Dame.
2007 was Notre Dame, and they had Jimmy Clausen, and it was the whole whiteout, and that's when I think it was like, this is here to stay.
Yeah, so you saw basically like the entire evolution of the whiteout.
Oh, I mean, when I went back to work and seeing what it's turned into, I mean, it's like the eighth wonder of the world.
It really is.
We were playing, we were freshmen, it was a little bit exciting, but like, so the brand of football was changing in the sense of just the high flying excitement, Deion, Jordan, Derek, Mike Robb, all those guys were playing. We had a good season. And to see what it is now, come back, and it was, with Saquon and Trace and all these guys, it was a different level. Like when Saquon took that first handoff, the direct snap, and he took off on Michigan, or Michigan coming out and they can't operate. I was like,
love that clip. Love that clip. So I got, from a player's perspective, in the locker room, what are the vibes like, and how do you like keep your emotions in check before a game like that, an environment like that?
for the home team, I think it's energizing, right? I think it's really cool. I think the hurdle to get over is to not lose all your energy and juice before the game, because you can get so up in arms. Some guys even pass out where you're just so excited and
Yeah.
just really into it, because it's an emotional game. Football is a special sport in the sense of, you got everything, physicality, emotional intelligence, all just working into one, and you get all those things flowing. You get the crowd participation. It's really for the home team just maintaining, I guess, some level of focus and not getting too much into the emotion. And then for the opposing teams, it's really staying focused, because like that's the first thing I heard when I got to the NFL, just playing with other guys in the Big Ten, was like, man, that whiteout game, that
Mhm.
whiteout thing is completely crazy. And it messes you up a little bit too when you go to Penn State and you go to like the NFL, because the games aren't as live as Beaver Stadium. So shout out to
For
Penn
sure.
State fans.
Yeah, I just wanted
Obviously,
to.
a primetime game, obviously it's a much longer wait time. Would you say, is there a much different, um, kind of strategy that you have going into a noon game versus a primetime game? Because obviously, does it alter your sleep schedule, things like that, or is it just kind of all the same, but you're just getting ready earlier?
You're getting ready earlier, but it does adjust things in terms of it's like a work day though, a night game. So you have meetings
Mhm.
pretty much all day. You're going through the process. It's almost again like practicing at the end. You get to get after it. So, but there's a different feeling going under the lights in college football. Like a night
Right.
game, like the vibes or
Yeah.
whatever, like whether you're relaxing all day, getting ready for the build up, that's different. I actually like after Saturday afternoon games. Like,
Mhm.
it's just something about like Friday Night Lights. Like when you're playing Friday, like when you're playing in high school, Friday Night Lights, there's like a feeling, there's an essence that comes with it. And there's something about college football in the afternoon. Like when you get there at
Right.
3 o'clock, the fans are out there, you see people hungover. It's like there's just something about the activity right there. But it's a completely different scene, I think, when you go to a night game. I just think that's an outlier in special situation. But so how I prepare, I think it's typically the same. I like to get up and get after it, so it's not looking over too
Right.
many things as a corner. You know what I mean? Just not overthinking. Try to stay on the reactionary tip.
Right. Right. In the NFL, you have like your veterans and guys like that where they help. They're big locker room guys and they help you out. How much do the upperclassmen help in an environment like that? When you're talking about Minnesota, I know we're skipping ahead here, but the Minnesota game where you got Nick Singleton, Katron Allen, guys like that are going to be experiencing it for the first time. How much does a guy like PJ Mustafa, Nick Tarver, and guys like that, how much should they help those younger guys in those types of environments?
I think it's extremely important, man. That's speaking to the culture of a team, right? When you're just like you
Mhm.
start to follow the lead of guys that have been there and like what to expect and how to prepare for certain type of games, and just staying with the one and up mentality and staying process driven, right? Like your job, you know what you're doing. Like you average 4 yards a carry. Like this is nothing new. I mean, this is going to be new for them across the thing,
Right.
but these 110,000 fans in white are cheering for you. So I
Mhm.
think that's a level of like the culture that I think James has built there that would be good, because like they're used to playing in big games. They're used to playing top competition and going in with the identity and belief that they're going to win. You know what I mean? Because they
Right.
have. So I think that speaks to the culture of the team. Just for me personally, like when I came into Penn State, Alan Zamitis, Michael Robinson, Paul Postlesny, like they were the culture. They set the culture, right? Tom
Mhm.
Bahali, like
But
Dan Cole. I can go on forever. You know what I mean? Jay Alford, just whatever. You know what I mean?
Right.
But yeah, and that kind of trickled down to the point where you know what to expect, and that's a part of building a culture within the football team
For
to
sure.
have sustained success. Yeah,
so going into your the LIG sports group, you
sure.
were a recruiter for Penn State for a while, right?
Yeah, I was recruiting coordinator, 17 to 19. So
And you
the
brought in,
19 class. Got Micah,
yeah,
Owe, got Jahan, got Mustafa. I mean, we had some good a couple good classes when I was there. You know, got Joey Porter out there
Good
now,
class.
Jaquan Brisker.
Those
Jaquan
are just
Brisker was there.
all-time classes
Um,
right there.
I would like to say so. So just so anybody listening, yeah, we did our work there. It was credit to that recruiting staff. I mean, just to speak to, we talk about a staff and what we prepare out of it or what comes from, recruiting staff. You had, Mike Villagrano, he's the DPP at Virginia Tech. EJ Barthel was the running back, run game coordinator at UConn. You have Andrew Goodman, who's a former walk-on at Penn State, now is the DFO at UConn. I have my own business and things of that nature. Kenny's the national recruiter coordinator at Penn State, and then Andy Frank has been a staple with James Franklin since his Vanderbilt days. So when you look at the talent that we had all around and just the different pieces, we had a pretty special group of guys bringing in an array of talent that can match up what I think the Penn State culture needed, and it worked. It's cool to see the report card like 4 or 5 years later, right? Like you really get excited.
You look at those guys in the NFL now, and it's like they're some of the top players at their positions in the NFL. So that must be an awesome feeling.
Yeah, it is. It is.
But so one of the arms of L.I.G Sports Group is recruiting. How does it change? How has it changed with now the NIL deals and more particularly the transfer portal?
Sure, 100%. So it's like tactics. Yeah. So with L.I.G, we hit the recruiting piece on two different fronts. We got the Blue Chip Academy, which is our high school for the families, athletes, and that's recruiting advice and behind the scenes things so they can go through the process, accelerate it, and understand and then different intricacies and how to set themselves up for success, not having the most offers, but what is your staying power once you get to the school? Are you going to the right school, or what are you trying to get out of this whole process? Because we already know certain percentage of only a small percentage make it to the NFL, but this college time and this entry point to the recruiting process is the entry into the sports business and essentially the rest of your career, if you look at it like that. And that's a pretty heavy decision for a 17-year-old when they're getting showered with attention from grown men since they were 14 years old. It's a weird dichotomy. And a lot of them are getting to school and spending 36 months there. And then it's off to the races in the NFL. Now you're just in a whole completely different world with someone that doesn't have all the, I guess I wouldn't say skills or development things when you're going through the process, because football is a very intense thing, right? When you're getting recruited, once you're trying to make it to the top, when you get to a place like Penn State, your time is regimented. So like exploring different things and what you want to do outside of football is sometimes difficult if it's not aligned and everything is situated. So that's what we do at the Blue Chip Academy. And then from the standpoint, from the professional services, helping with, like when you talk about Lockdown U and building the brands in the NIL, that's another form of recruiting, right? From the standpoint of just second level. We just take it up a notch where now you're talking about guys that have scalable value, right? Like that they're good and they fit into the program and different things of that nature. So it's all comes into talent acquisition. And from that, we use that as a vehicle to help recruit at that school, right? Because now we're trying to make the brand fit, and no one wants to start a brand with bad players. So from you're talking to a talent acquisition professional, recruiting personnel, whatever the case may be. So I value how good the fit and how talented players are. So that's kind of where we fit in the recruiting process there. So yeah,
that's awesome. I mean, that's definitely a resource that I've been thinking personally. College football, especially, and the NFL, rookies coming into the NFL need those resources to kind of bounce off of, because not a lot of them have that growing up or going into college.
That's the biggest thing with NIL, right? It's like this whole new ecosystem. And I mean, coaches, back office guys, administrators, recruiting coordinators are already, have a lot of things on their plate. And especially for a player that's going through the process, I mean, they have practice, they have different things. So even with Lockdown U and the brands that we're creating under the Blue White Collective at Penn State, it's really to help these guys leverage their name, image, and likeness the correct way and use the power of the school, right? That's because you're going to be a part of it anyway. And then building a legacy silo. So we build in, merchandise and the brands are step one, but when we get to step 2, step 3, now you're talking about a legacy silo that has player development aspects. Now you get connected to career development things when you're leaving Penn State, because we know how strong the Penn State network is with highest the highest dues paying alumni in the country and all those good things. So like trying to activate those things and really benefit the guys who are not missing anything throughout this process, but given an acceleration through professional careers, right? Using sports as a catalyst. So that's kind of how we use that, and that's the plan moving forward with the Blue White Collective and Lockdown U.
How would you say that your experiences, obviously being one of the top overall recruits in the country, going to Penn State and then having pit stops, obviously an NFL career and then working with the Cleveland Browns, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you worked in the XFL for a bit as well. And then at Penn State, how would you say those experiences, both as a player and, on the other side of it, has allowed you to, not only find your own, create your own business, but help relate to the kids that you're working with as well?
I mean, I think my unique path is the only reason I created my business, right? Because I think it is a very unique thing to me. I don't think I can't speak for the world, but I don't know how many guys were a 5-star when, Rivals was happening, kind of went to a school, turned around, I graduated in 36 months, goes to the NFL, kind of just my whole track, and being able to, even from the standpoint of going all the way up to, recruiting guys like Michael Parsons from that standpoint, and then going to the XFL and being able to work with Oliver Luck, work with a Doug Willie, work with a Vince McMahon. We talk about sports marketing and branding at the highest level and building, a football league and all the different tentacles that come off of a business. Vince had $500 million that we had to start a football league with. So that's just a whole, so seeing the whole, ecosystem from an intimate space. I mean, that's kind of how L.I.G came about. When you talk about the different 3 tentacles with Blue Chip Academy, that's the high school, the high school education and critical piece. And then we talk about strategic partnerships and business development in the college space, which is all the critical points in an athlete's career in which they need. And we get to the NFL or executive search and making that transition out of the game and finding athlete-driven traits that have transferable skills, right, into corporate America, whether you want to be a general manager, coach, or working as a chief revenue officer, chief marketing officer. There's a specific set of not skills that you get as an athlete, but you have a very critical or unique perspective going through the product line as a product, right? If you're aware of the different things that you're going through, man, I've seen so many different things playing at Penn State, working as a player, and then going to the other side and knowing how to deal with the player. What actually moves the needle to profitability if we're dealing with the players, right? And just understanding all the different intricacies of the business of sports has been, extremely fun. I always wanted to be a general manager before I wanted to play in the NFL, right? So
That's so
growing up, growing up, I was a ball boy. So that was the first, that was my inclination. Oh, look at this coach, look at this AD. And then it was I want to play too. So my viewpoint was always kind of flipped a little bit.
That's awesome.
So you graduated before your spring semester of your junior year, before you went to the NFL?
Yes.
And you ran a 4.31 40-yard dash at the combine.
Back in the day.
Second to Chris Johnson.
It kind of got overshadowed, man. It was I ran 4.31. It was
because he had the record for a decade. No, I looked that up. I was like, dude, this guy second in the class to one of the guys who held the 40-yard dash record for I don't even know how many years.
Right. 4.24 is pretty crazy, right? And made me feel slow at 4.31. So I've never really counted that as a fast time, because I was like, man, it ran 4.24. That's different, right? It's all about what they say, comparison's the thief of joy. So I guess I wasn't that joyous that day because I was comparing to 4.24.
So what is the combine training regimen like? Did you have to deal with that, balance that in classes as well? Or was it just training?
So no, I left since I graduated, so having the plan that wanting to graduate so I can go to any training facility in the country. I ended up going to API in Scottsdale, Arizona to train. So I already graduated Penn State, so I was out there training for the time. And it's really the combine is really just a long interview process where they're trying to see you off kilter, right? I might have ran my 40-yard dash at 7:30 in the morning, right? So they get you, so it's they want to see you perform early in the morning. You're in meetings really late, and just the interview process, everything's just trying to get you off kilter with a lot of different variables because they're trying to see your internal makeup, right? Or get confirmation from what the information that they've gathered for the past 2 years and check off boxes here. So as an athlete going through that, your whole process, whether you're hitting the ground running through the training process, is making sure you're good on the field, but making sure you're sharp and how to be a professional throughout the combine. Because, I mean, you lose millions of bucks if you handle that the wrong way.
Yeah. And you started as a two-way player, you're running back, cornerback as a true freshman. What kind of prompted you to follow that path to just being a pure cornerback?
Well, when I came into Penn State, I was always one of the, growing up. I mean, I don't know if Charles Woodson was my favorite football player of all time, probably still is. But growing up, watching him play two ways and different things, was always a dream of mine to play college football and play two ways. So that was something that Joe Paterno promised me and told me if I could show that I could do it and we can make it work. So when I came in early as a freshman in January, it was a very, very beneficial time for me to get integrated with the offense and defense, learn certain defensive packages and learn packages. So I was very conceptual learner. So I was learning different concepts and being able to fit in the packages. So I was able to play fast as a freshman. But as my responsibility on defense grew, the emergence of Deion, Jordan, and all those guys. The next year we had different, Evan Royster, just the offense had firepower. Kind of Joe saw it fit for me to transition over and go to full-time corner. I still wanted to get the ball a little bit. I think I was a little tight about that later on, but yeah.
I mean, you killed it as a running back. 18 carries, 227 yards as a freshman, along with 10 catches for 126 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, we were a little utility guy.
Not bad.
Not bad. We were efficient. We were efficient.
So on that note, why do you think, kind of in your own words, like why, because if we're being honest, over the last several years, prominent two-way players have kind of phased out, right? You had yourself, your freshman year, if you think back even further, you had Chris Campbell at Ohio State, if you're sticking with the Big Ten. Do you think it's just kind of the physicality of the game or the need to truly just be great at your, true position when you're looking to get to that next level?
I think when you start getting to the recruiting process and you're bringing people in and the depth that you need in a football game with the high pace offenses now getting 90 to 100 plays, I just think it's kind of hard for a player to maintain just the level of endurance for both sides of the ball and the physicality. And I would add somebody else into that, Keith Talib. He was a great two-way player in Kansas. Right, yeah. And it was like, his was like, I was always impressed by him. He was a good friend of mine, but yeah, I mean, it's tough to play both ways, physically, and when you get into the NFL, right, you're getting into the nitty gritty of how good are you at this position. You know what I mean? Can you do, this, that, and the third? And it's based on technique a little bit. So you want to sharpen those things because now you're dealing with surgeons in the NFL, right? Like it's not just based on athletic ability. There's a lot of times when I was a freshman, I understand. My dad being a coach and an athletic director, I like to say my football IQ is a little higher than typical. So when I got into Penn State, I was able to kind of mentally grasp everything and kind of lean on my athleticism to have some success as a freshman. But as you get higher up and got to cover tech and there's the number one receiver in this game, I don't know if I should be focusing on getting the ball if I got to cover this guy. You know what I mean? So.
Right. Yeah.
There's different responsibilities, but still important.
So let's get into the big game this week at Michigan. Wolverines are, I think I saw it at 7-point favorites over Penn State.
7.5, 7.5 maybe?
Yeah, 7.5 or 7. Yeah. Dave and I talked briefly about some matchups, mainly Blake Corum stopping that run game. It was awesome to see PJ Mustipher seemingly 100% back from that injury over the past couple games. But just from a defensive back's perspective, what are you seeing in Manny Diaz's defense that's leading to, I think we have 13 takeaways in the last 3 games? So what are you seeing that's making that whole entire unit just gel so well?
Well, I mean, obviously you gotta lock down you. We gotta start with the back end, right? Like these guys are just all over the place, and just the depth of talent that I think they have. Like when you just look at a secondary, man, got Joey, you got Kalen, you got Day Day, you got Jamie Dixon, you got Kean Ellis, you got Wheatley, you got Tig 16, you got I mean, there's so much depth back there and guys that can cover and make plays. It frees up, the stuff up front. And Manny Diaz comes from like an attack style defense from when he was at Miami and different things of that nature. So I think you're seeing players playing real comfortable in their strengths, right? And when you talk about stopping the run, I mean, PJ being back is critical. And I was very impressed by Abdul Smith last week. I mean, I got to sit in. I'm typically on the field watching the game, so I can't always see what's happening. It's like a splash play. And last week when I was the honorary captain, I got a chance to sit in the suite again, and it's like watching the all 22 film, so you can like really see who's working, what's happening. I really enjoyed that, but he really impressed me last week. Abdul Smith, and that's different thing. So I think him showing up and Chop in the middle and those guys, I think slow that down and get them in passing situations. I think it could be a pretty good day for Penn State.
Yeah, I mean, I think they had two consecutive plays where it was Chop and Abdul just back to back when they were on their goal line, just stuffing the run right in the B
Yeah,
gap. Like
yeah,
it was
and obviously
great.
you got guys like PJ, right? Like PJ's he's a monster. He's a man in there. And
Yeah,
like when you talk about when I was recruiting, we always talked about recruiting size, right? Because it was still when I got there in the back end of some of the sanction classes per se, but like nothing wrong. There's really great players that came out of that, Chris Godwin and Jordan Lucas, and just great players. But when you talk about the interior linemen from that standpoint, I think that's where it's kind of off, where you got like a little bit smaller guys, not athletic or whatever that may be. So I think now that you're seeing that internal makeup of defensive linemen and even the offensive line, right? We talk about last year where Penn State had a little trouble getting the wheels turning, and this year with two freshmen really getting downhill and making the defense show up and play sound football. That's very important when it comes to Big Ten football, I mean, football in general. Don't let anybody fool you.
We harp on that every week. How the biggest thing that's held us back is, I hate to say, having an SEC type line, but having those type of bodies up front to be able to beat a team like Michigan, Ohio State, who have those type of bodies. That's really.
I'm happy. I'm happy you did this with the SEC line, because that's a real thing when you talk about talent acquisition and recruiting. Like there's size standards and critical factors when you come to recruit. And I mean, you can look up. I mean, I don't have to go to the numbers, but you can look up some analytics of like the top defensive linemen of the past 20 years and where they came from. Like it's going to be down there.
Yeah,
SEC, like you say, like the SEC defensive lineman. But I think
they get the name because they've had a bunch of big players in the past, but it's kind of moving towards Big Ten action.
Well, it's finding the right. It's finding the right players, right? You get guys like that, but like Christian Barmore is a second round pick out of Alabama. He gets considered a SEC lineman, but he's from Philadelphia. So it's like it all comes down to talent acquisition and finding the right fits for your school, your ecosystem, and the scheme that you play.
So before we let you go, we need a score prediction from you. Who you got? Obviously,
score prediction.
But what's the score prediction from you?
I'm going Penn State 24-7.
24-7. I like that. Defense showing up. How many takeaways we getting?
Give me 3.
3? Oh, all right.
One fumble, 2 picks. 1 fumble, 2 picks.
All right, I'm gonna go 2 picks. 2 fumbles. There we go. Again, Justin, thank you so much for taking time out to talk to us. We really appreciate it. We're gonna link all the socials in the description below. But if there's anything else you want to shout out from L.I.G, Blue Chip Academy,
man, just lock down you, L.I.G Sports Group. Guys, check that out, www.ligsportsgroup.com. Everywhere that you need to handle the critical points of the football ecosystem. Anybody that's trying to go through the sports ecosystem, whether you're in high school going through the recruiting process, if you're looking for a job in sports, and just moving up in NIL and different consulting practices, man, we're here for all those critical factors that really or a little underneath the main thing that everyone talks about in sports. But we're here for all that, So you check that out, and Blue Chip Academy, the podcast that comes out weekly, where we interview different professionals that use sports as a catalyst to a career that they can bank on, and use those tactical steps so guys can really maximize these opportunities that they do have, and not really short themselves, and maximize on the field and off the field. So, yeah.
I mean, I love what you're doing with that. Like, that's awesome.
Respect,
awesome.
man. Thank
awesome
you.
work.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thanks for having me on, fellas. Like, this was
appreciate it.
That was a great conversation.
This much football in a minute.
That was very, very insightful. I've learned a ton from you about recruiting inside, like some people passing out before a whiteout game. Like, that's nuts.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember my favorite player of all time is B-Dog.
Dear B-Dog. Yeah, that was always
funny stories of, like, he would get so hyped before a game that he would literally people would have to sit him down. He'd have to, like, take oxygen just to calm him down before kickoff. I think the game hadn't even started yet.
He's the essence of football.
Different breed.
Yeah, that dude was
air crawling out of the tunnel. Absolutely maniac.
Yeah, man. No, that's awesome. Yeah, B-Dog's a favorite. It's a fan.
Awesome. What is your favorite sports team? NFL team.
Favorite sports team? Man, I don't know. I think I was scarred as a young kid. I want to say I was a fan for like 2 years. I got into football. I was like fighting it. Dad, Terry Smith, associate head coach at Penn State, he got me into football. I was like watching, and I was like, I want to watch Nickelodeon. I want to do this. And then I finally became a fan, right? And I was like fully in it. And I love the Steelers. And they lost to the Chargers. I think that was like, I'm going to show my age, but I want to say 94. I don't know, 94, 96. But I was so hurt that they lost because I thought they were going to win. Growing up in Pittsburgh, it's a religion and all that stuff. And I think at that moment, I've never been a fan of a team ever again. But always looked at how teams operate and how they, handle from the just business operation side, the essence that they use, that they have in the community, and just the consistency from ownership and teams like that. So that's how I look at teams. And still, the Steelers are one of my favorite teams, even though it's like a down year. But the way that they operate, I would say the Steelers are probably one of my favorites.
Yeah, I think I've announced my Eagles fanhood like 25 times. Much. Anytime they lose,
fandom's a grind too.
Never again.
Fandom's a grind, man. Especially when you're a player. It's like I
think I'm having one of the best fan football seasons ever. We got Penn State 5-0. Eagles are 5-0 too.
Yeah, Miles is showing out there, man. Miles, Jalen Hurts, all those guys.
I was looking it up today for an article I'm about to write. I think he's 4th in the league in total rushing yards, Miles.
And Saquon's what, 1 or 2?
Saquon's 2.
Yeah, Saquon's 2.
And Chubb's 1.
Yeah. Okay.
So he's killing it. Got 2 Penn State.
Pretty good.
Top 5.
Why not? That's what we're talking about, man. Now you say that though. I am a Penn State fan now. I would say that. I mean, I think that's where I'm probably the only team that I'm like emotionally attached to, where it's like, if it's not going the way, I just turn it off. It's like it's like you have to, like, when you really like something, you have to keep distance so it's not like too emotional. Like, you know what I mean? That's why I recruit and don't coach. You know what I mean? Coach try to want to have an impact, but I care.
Yeah. I feel you on that.
This is fun, fellas. I really appreciate it being on.
Yeah, man.
We appreciate you, man.
You're a hilarious follow on Twitter. That profile picture of you on the sidelines at the Northwestern game. Racking up to you. How was that game?
It was cool. Yeah, I mean, it was cool. Like, even in the rain and stuff like that. I enjoy football, and it's cool seeing those guys. Like, I recruited some. Like, I remember Joey when his name came up when he was a sophomore, and he, like, the last time he came to camp, he had ran. Don't be mad at me, Joey, but he ran like 4.99. Right, like it was like a young prospect. So you start seeing like all these different stories of just the maturation process of guys, whether it's him, Brisker, Micah, and it's really a fulfilling thing to see them live out their dreams, right? Like, I remember Jahan and Micah and all these guys, like Luketa, having dreams of playing in the NFL and like really want to make an impact and using their college experience to do that. And to see them really do it, and the staff at Penn State to put the support around those guys and see their dreams fulfilled. I mean, for our move too, like those guys were intentional about what they wanted to do, and I would have put my bottom dollar on it. And so like it was like I had a lot of theories going through my football career, and like those two classes, I tested a lot of theories on just like type of players that I've seen and different things that I need from the players that I played with, right? Because I like to say that I played with some of the most talented guys in my 3 years at Penn State ever. Like I think we left probably 7 wins on the table from my 3 years from just the talent that we had, right? And you start going into like, Navarro Bowman and Maven and Jared Aldrick, the second round of those first round picks and all those guys. But yeah, it's really fulfilling to see those guys really maximize this process, because it's such a small percentage and you can get lost in the cracks very easy.
Yeah, that must be such an awesome feeling. And
I mean,
again, keep up the great work. I mean, that's so terrific, so terrific. By the way, your record was 29-9 at Penn State.
I said left 7 out there.
So it could have been 36-2.
Right.
That could have been, according to Justin King, his record was 36-2 at Penn State.
Yeah, I mean, based on the talent that we had, and I think a different step of how maybe I won't get into any of the little details of it, but the talent we had, we should have won those games.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Again, thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to us. We appreciate it so much.
Thank you guys. Love what you guys are doing too, man.
Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it so much. We'll talk to you again, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
All right. Peace, man.
See you, man.
See ya.
We are not done yet. The greatest betting competition on the planet returns. Last week we did it over text, but the Big Ten betting bonanza is back for week number 7. I believe I got that right this time. 7?
7.
There we go. So we have a man on fire in terms of Dave Barron. This guy is crushing it. And on the flip side, I am a garbage man, essentially. I'm just living in trash, living in filth, off the record. We'll get into last week, how I got there, how Dave got there. His only miss last week was the Rutgers, Nebraska over 49, which was a perplexing pick, to say the least. I was very confused when he opened it up with that. I was like, okay, you can take that, sure. But then you easily hit the Michigan Indiana under of 58.5, and then you hit the Ohio State Michigan State over on a late garbage time touchdown in the 4th. So week 6, Barron goes 2-1, up another 0.8 units, and most importantly gets +2 bonanza points. That's what I'm calling them now. Bonanza points.
I dig it.
So his season totals are absurd. 10-5 record, up over 6 units on the season, and absolutely crushing me in bonanza points with +16 so far.
Woo! Oh, baby.
And now we head to Flea Bottom, aka my picks. I mean, I had Rutgers money line Friday night. They had control of that game the entire first half, and then just like my Big Ten betting bonanza season, the wheels just came off. But honestly, I should have known better. I bet them 3 times this year already. They've lost every time, but I'm probably going to keep betting them. And then I said in our text thread that Illinois was everything I will wish they were, and I wasn't wrong. They are. I had them at -3.
They look good.
Had -3.5. They won despite Tommy DeVito going down. in an all-time Big Ten slugfest, 9-6. No touchdowns scored, 14 total points, and a big fat L for me. But the only one I won, the football gods were finally on my side as Maryland scored a touchdown with 35 seconds left to bring that total to 61, and I had over 58.5. So
they saved you after betraying me earlier in the year with that.
I mean,
whole Buffalo game.
I was about to go 0-3. I need so 1 and 2 last week for me. Lost 1.1 units, and my third straight week of getting only 1 Bonanza point, which I'm not proud of. So I'm officially ice cold. On season, I'm literally holding back throw up reading these numbers. On season, down to 7, 9 and 1 record, down over half a unit. So that's not too bad, but I only have 7 total Bonanza points compared to Dave's 16. So I need an absolute miracle to get things back on track. And if you're betting, you should definitely follow Dave's picks and not mine. And with that, I'll give you the floor, Dave. First pick, week 7, Big Ten betting Bonanza.
So again, this week's slate, not a lot to choose from here. So going to get a real interesting here pretty quick. So I am going to start this off with Indiana versus Maryland. Okay. I'm going to take the over here at 61.5. I think Maryland continues to score. Indiana, that defense has given up pretty much 30 points a game on average. And I think they'll be able to score a couple touchdowns here with Maryland's D not being too scary. So I do like the over here at 61.5.
I was also looking at that. 61's a lot of points, though. Okay, I'm glad you didn't take this from me. And I honestly do not want to take this bet. I repeat, I do not want to take this bet because I feel like I'm cursed and this will curse the bet. But I have to do it to get back in this competition. Penn State money line.
Love it.
Plus 220. I think we're going to come out strong. They might have the lead going into halftime, but I think we're eventually going to make it a very close game and pull away in the end. Like we said, we finally have those bodies on the inside to match up with Michigan. I don't think they're prepared for that. Penn State money line. Let's go.
Let's go. Go State, baby. I love it.
Had to take that from you.
You can have it. All right. I'm going to go Illinois versus Minnesota. Illinois coming off fresh off the new AP poll, being ranked in that top 25. I know Tommy DeVito DeVito did get banged up. I actually didn't see. Do you know, is he playing this week?
He's questionable with ankle.
I think he's questionable. I think he'll end up going here. So I do like the Illini plus 6.5 at home. I think Minnesota maybe gets caught looking a little ahead to the next week's whiteout matchup in Happy Valley. I think Minnesota still comes out with the win here, but I like the Illini to keep it close.
So this is a hold on paper right here. I'm taking the under 39.5. I think I saw that in that game.
Yeah.
So I had Minnesota and I crossed it out because of the stats that I read. So rushing totals, yards per game allowed this season. Minnesota's allowing 93 yards on the ground. Illinois is allowing 67.4. That's third in the entire FBS. So Mo Ibrahim is probable. So he'll be back. Mm-hmm. Like we said, DeVito's questionable, but he might also be back. However, Illinois is second in the FBS in QB pressure percentage, with Newton and Randolph leading that charge. So I think this is going to be another Big Ten slugfest that Illinois is going to find themselves in. And I know it's a low total, but I'm taking under 39.5.
Like it. Classic Big Ten October affair.
Exactly. And that was also what I was checking for the weather. I was hoping there was going to be some kind of inclement weather. up there.
Snowfall in Champaign.
I think it's going to be like 64 and sunny. So let's go defense.
All right. For my last pick, I'm going Nebraska against Purdue, and I'm going to take the Cornhuskers here plus 13.5. I think this could end up being a closer game than the spread would indicate. I think Purdue does come away with victory here. Purdue's been on a nice little tear here since the opener against Penn State, but I think Nebraska's shown a little bit more fighting in them. I think they cover the 2 touchdown spread.
Casey Thompson, he was injured last game?
He was. I think he's another one where he's questionable for this week. I'd have to look and see if he's in there or not. But
yeah, I'm not sure if he came back in or not. If it was just like a targeting shot or not. But funnily enough, I'm also on this game. I'm taking the over 58.5.
Ooh.
In this game. Casey Thompson, if he plays, I think will put up some yards and touchdowns against this Purdue defense, who's allowing over 300 yards in the air per game. And then Aiden O'Connell back for the Boilermakers. He's going against Nebraska secondary. He's allowing over 265 yards in the air per game. So I'm taking that over 58.5.
I just checked that Casey Thompson did come back in that game, so I think he should be good to go.
Yeah, I thought he did. All right, yeah. So that I'm loving that over now. All right, so I got a +3 on the board, a +1, and a +1, and you're all +1s. You had Illinois. Well, your second one was Illinois +6.5.
+6.5. Yep.
Okay. Cool. All righty, that will do it for this episode of Whiteout Weekly. I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Justin King. I know we certainly did. Once again, shout out Justin for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate you taking the time. We have all of his links in the description below. If you're listening in the podcast or on YouTube, in the description for L.I.G. if you want to give them a follow, his socials as well as Lockdown U. Thank you guys again for listening. We'll be back next week after the huge Michigan game.